So today we're going to talk about looking at the standard form of a linear equation. And I'm learning to use algebraic reasoning to change something that looks like ax by plus c equals 0 or y equals 0 or to this, y equals mx plus b. And we're familiar with this. But some equations will be written out like this. So we have to understand how that works. And I'm going to introduce this idea of using x and y intercepts to graph a line. And you'll see that comparison to this form, ax plus by plus c equals 0. So we're going to take a look at that. So a line can be written in slope-intercept form, which is this, y equals mx plus b. Lines may also be written in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. That's called the standard form. So when you see in future math classes, math learning, you will see equations written in standard form like this. All right? So first thing we're going to learn how to do is to rearrange this equation 2x minus 5y plus 15 equals 0, so it's in slope-intercept form. All right? So we want 2x minus 5y plus 15 equals 0, so that in the end, it looks like mx plus b. And that thinking basically is to isolate y. That's our thinking. So we want to get y by itself. And we've done that in past lessons and practices. But the idea there is we're using our algebra to move everything away from y. And we look at this and say, well, if I make this 0, I can go subtract 2x, and I can subtract 15. From this side, I have to do the same thing to the other side, negative 2x minus 15. And what happens there is we've made a 0 pair here. That's 0, and that's 0. So what I'm left with on the left side of this equation is negative 5y equals negative 2x minus 15. So we've got all the other terms to the other side. Now what we have to do is we need to get y by itself. Well, we have to ask our question, what is negative 5 doing to y? And if you said it's multiplying, you're right. That means I need to divide everything on both sides by negative 5. Then I can say, well, negative 5 divided by negative 5, that's y. Well, negative 2 divided by negative 5, that's not nice. But we know our operations, when dividing two negative signs, that becomes a positive. So we can actually leave this as a fraction, 2 over 5. X, and we know that negative divided by negative is a positive. 15 divided by 5, okay, that's nice. Well, that looks like that form. And we know from previous learning that our slope is 2 over 5, and we know our y-intercept is 3 from previous learning. And from there, what I can do is graph my line. So now we're able to graph our line. We would start off at y-intercept of 3. And we know our slope is 2 over 5, so that means we're going to do, you go up to, right on the 5. I can make a point, up to, run a 5. And I can continue the pattern going the other way. And then I can draw my line. So this line, y equals 2x, 2 over 5x plus 3, is that line, but also I can have 2x minus 5y plus 15 equals 0. These are equivalent. Those are the same. All right, so what we've done is just change the form of it so that it's easy for us to plot. And if I wanted to check my thinking, I could use my Desmos calculator. I can type in both functions. Y equals 2 divided by 5x plus 3. So that line looks exactly like that with the y-intercept of 3. And I can type in the second one. I can type in 2x minus 5y plus 15 equals 0. And you'll see there that you can see how it's changing colors there because they are exactly on the same line. Blue, red, they're the exact same line. So these equations are equivalent. And we isolate y using our algebra skills moving forward. Okay. So what I want you to do is take 4x minus 5y minus 20 equals 0. I want you to try to rearrange it so that it's equal to in slope-intercept form. You try it, push pause, give it a try. So what I did was I made 0 pairs for the 4x and the negative 20 because we want to move them to the other side. So negative 4x plus 20, negative 4x plus 20. All right, so I would have been left with negative 5y equals negative 4x plus 20. And then I'm going to divide by the coefficient out front, which is negative 5 for each term. And 4 over 5 doesn't divide out nicely, so we're going to leave that as a fraction. Negative divided by a negative makes that fraction positive, plus or an addition and a subtraction. When I divide those out, that gets me a negative. All right, and then I'm able to graph that line. And then you can check that on Desmos to see if this function and this function are equal. All right, the next question was talking about these two lines, and we're asked to fill in the chart below about these lines. So we're going to ask ourselves, which line is steeper, which line is decreasing, which line has a greater y-intercept. All right, so if I'm looking at this, it's important to be able to sketch these lines. All right, so if I was looking at this, I want to get y by itself, because if it's in y equals mx plus b, then that becomes very easy for me to move this around. So I'm going to minus 3x. All right, I don't need to move the 24 because the 24 is always already to the right side. Okay, and I can't take 24 minus 3x because those are not like terms. So I'm left with negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 24. And then I can divide each part here by negative 4. Y equals negative divided by negative is a positive, 3/4 x. A positive times or divided by a negative is a negative. All right. Subtract 4x, subtract 4x, add 8, add 8. And the reason why I'm moving this 8, this negative 8, is because it's on the same side of y. want to ship him to the other side. So that's going to be 0, so I'm left with y. That one's going to be 0, so equals negative 4x plus 8. And there I go. All right, so from this one I can say my slope is 3/4. My y-intercept is negative 6. My slope here is negative 4. And my y-intercept is 8. All right, so we know how to plot these lines. So I'm going to hit pause, plot those lines, give it a try. All right, so I plotted my first one, y equals 3/4 x minus 6. Started here at negative 6, and then I had a run of 4, rise of 3, run of 4, rise of 3. All right, I'm going to use two different colors here. So this one's y equals 3/4 x minus 6. I'm going to use purple for this one. I start off at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I know my slope is negative 4 over 1. So I'm going to go down 4, run of 1, down 4, run of 1, down 4, run of 1, and so on. And it's good to label these graphs so that when we answer our questions, we don't always have to keep going back and forth to figure out which graph is which. Helps us to visually see it. All right, which line is steeper? Well, if I'm looking at it, it probably helps to do line B there and line A there so that we can see it. I would say definitely line B is steeper, and your rationale would be, you guessed it, has the larger slope. Okay, which one's decreasing? Well, if I'm going up to the right, that's increasing. That one's decreasing, so line B again. All right, why is that? Slope of line B is negative. There we go. So slope of line B is negative. Okay. Which one has the greater y-intercept? Well, if I look at back that, well, there's one y-intercept, there's another y-intercept. You guessed it, line B. Okay, so if I was looking at B for 8, this is for line B, compared to for line A. So just a couple of things just to kind of get your mind wrapped around. We have positive, negative slopes, where's the y-intercept, that type of thing. All right, so you look at some of these equations, and there's actually another way of graphing these equations without changing the equation. All right, and we're going to think about the x-intercept and y-intercept of a line. So if I was looking at my chart here, all right, we all would say that would be the y-intercept. And we would all say that this is the x-intercept. And there's something special about those 2 points. With the y-intercept, the y-intercept for any point is where x is 0. So the y-intercept, x is always equal to 0. So this is kind of what we know. And then we can solve for y. Well, likewise, if we were finding the x-intercept, if I'm looking at this point, how high do I go up? No height. So my x-intercept is where y equals 0. right? So we could estimate from this as an estimate. I would say that point could be 0, 2. That makes sense. And this point here, I went over, let's say, our estimate here for this is 0, my fault. Let's say it's at -3, comma 0. So if we were finding the y-intercept, we can make x equal 0. And if we were finding the x-intercept, we can y equal 0. So I can solve that. So if we can find the x and y intercepts, we can plot our graph. So let's find the x-intercept. So we're finding this, we're going to let y equal 0 and then solve for x. So I look at this, 6x minus 3y minus 18 equals 0. And when I sub in, I'm going to sub in 0 in for y. And what you'll notice here, this part will end up being 0. Because 0 times anything, obviously, is 0. So now I can just deal with this part. And we know how to solve equations. All right? All right? I can add 18 to both sides because we want to make 18 a 0 pair. All right, and now we want to solve for x. X equals 3. So I know now that my x-intercept has to be 3, comma 0. Because our y is 0, our x is 3 from that. So if I look down here, there's my point, 3, 0. All right, let's move this around a little bit. So my x-intercept is this point because it's on the x-axis. All right. Likewise, we can find the y-intercept because we're going to let x equal 0, and then we're going to solve for y. Because we know up above, x has to be a 0 to be on that axis. So let's write down our equation, 6x minus 3y minus 18 equals 0. And don't skip that step because that step is really important because you want to know where you're putting 0 in. All right, I'm replacing x with 0 there. And the nice thing again about inserting anything with 0, well, anything times by 0 is 0. So that's gone. All right, now I can use my algebra skills. I'm going to make this a 0 pair. I got to do the equivalent on the other side. And then I need to isolate y. So I'm going to divide by -3. So y equals -6. So therefore, my y-intercept equals 0, -6. That's where that point is. So if I went to my graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's my y-intercept of -6. Because x is 0, y is -6. So it depends. You look at that and say, well, that's a little bit of math, but it still gets us their answer. Well, when we graph lines, we need 2 points. All right? Well, I would say we have 2 points. So this line is 6x minus 3y minus 18 equals 0. So I can find any point on there that satisfies that condition. Now, it says here, sketch the line and find its slope. Well, slope is rise over run. And you look at this line, you say, well, it has a run of 3 and a rise of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My slope here is positive 2. All right, so this is a different way of graphing this line, but I can find the x and y intercepts by making the other letter 0. And if you wanted to check your work, all right, I can actually do this. 6x minus 3y minus 18 equals 0. Well, if you look at that graph and you look at the graph on my phone, it's the same thing. And I can tap the graph, and if you can see that, all right, 3, 0, and 0, negative 6 are the same points that I have there. So it allows you a little bit of check. All right, so give that a go. But with this lesson, we understood how to change the equations. So from ax by plus c equals 0 to y equals mx plus b, we learned that. And we learned how to find the xy intercepts and sketch the graph. All right, take care and talk soon.